Hey guys, tonight we are going somewhere very few people have ever seen, and even fewer have survived. Beneath the shining towers and endless neon of Las Vegas lies another city, one carved out of concrete, humidity, and silence. A place where the day never begins, because the sun never reaches it. A place where human voices echo through tunnels built not for living but for draining floods. They call them the Mole People. Some say it as a joke, others say it with a kind of disbelief, like it cannot possibly be true that hundreds of people live beneath the city that never sleeps. But it is true. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you are listening from and what time it is where you are, because tonight your evening is about to go far, far underground. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let us ease into tonight's journey together. The air changes first. It smells of wet dust and rusted metal, faintly sour. The way old coins taste on the tongue. Your flashlight beam stumbles along the tunnel wall and catches white mineral streaks where rainwater has leaked through the ceiling year after year. Each step echoes as if the earth itself is hollow. It feels impossible that, above this, casinos glitter with chandeliers worth more than everything down here combined. The contrast makes your stomach turn. The heat of the desert above, the chill of the underground below. Your breath curls in front of you, pale against the blackness. Someone has spray-painted a name on the wall, maybe their own, maybe someone they lost to the last flash flood. The concrete hums softly, as if remembering the sound of rushing water. A figure moves ahead, just a shadow at first until the flashlight finds him, a man pushing a rusted shopping cart with one squeaking wheel. He is wrapped in layers of old shirts, casino uniforms, and a hotel bathrobe tied around his waist like armor. The tunnel air is cold, even though the world above is a desert. He nods at you, suspicious but not unkind, and you understand why he lives here. The noise of the world disappears down here. No sirens, no shouting, no bright signs, only the constant drip of condensation from the ceiling, the whisper of plastic tarps, the faraway thrum of traffic above like waves through rock. He tells you his name is Rob, and that the tunnels run for nearly 200 miles under the city. He knows them like hallways in his own house. 7 levels deep in some places, he says. You could live your whole life down here, he murmurs, and never see the light again. His words linger as you walk deeper. The beam catches fragments of other lives, a child's shoe, a broken mirror, a melted candle stub, an aluminum pan blackened from use. Each object speaks quietly about survival. People here cook with what they can find. Hand sanitizer and bits of alcohol gel make a blue flame. Aluminum pans serve as stoves balanced on bricks. You can almost smell the acrid tang of burnt plastic, the faint sweetness of instant noodles cooking in recycled water. It is not a feast. It is chemistry and luck. Sometimes, on nights when they find discarded meat or canned beans, they share what they have. The smell of food draws others, half hungry, half curious, forming little pockets of community. It is not kindness so much as necessity. In the tunnels, every light, every sound, every meal is shared. Further in, the ground changes texture. The dust gives way to sludge, where the drainage slope begins. It is easy to forget that these tunnels were not meant for people. They are flood channels. The city's rain, rare but fierce, drains straight through here, rushing fast enough to sweep away anything that stands in its way. There are no alarms, no warning sirens. The only signal is a low roaring sound, water thundering from miles away 30 seconds before it hits. Rob says he once watched a mattress rise off the ground and spin down the tunnel like a raft. He lost 2 friends that night. You picture it in silence, the way the water must have swallowed their makeshift homes, their books, their old photographs, everything they ever built. The thought tightens your chest. Somewhere down another corridor, a voice echoes, half singing, half talking. You follow it to a small alcove, lit by the glow of a single lantern. A woman sits cross-legged, sorting through piles of scavenged metal. She calls herself Beverly. Her fingers are grey with dust, but she smiles as if she has forgotten what fear is. Beside her, a small cat with a singed tail curls up on a pile of blankets. She explains that the cat survived a fire. Someone had set one in anger, maybe out of boredom or madness. Fires travel fast down here. The air is thick and slow to clear. She shows you how she makes money, gathering bits of copper wire and aluminum to sell to recycling yards. "It is our gold," she says, tapping a coil of wire. Her laugh echoes, hollow but defiant. The light from the lantern flickers and dies, and darkness folds in like velvet. You stand still, feeling it wrap around you. Down here, darkness is not just the absence of light. It is presence, weight, almost alive. You can hear your own heartbeat. People say you start to see things after a while. Figures in the black, faces that seem carved out of the air itself. Some call them ghosts, others just shadows of memory. The tunnel dwellers talk about the man with no arms, a shape that moves smoother than air. Whether it is imagination, exhaustion, or something else, no one really wants to know. Fear keeps you cautious, and caution keeps you alive. Time behaves strangely underground. Without sunrise or sunset, days melt together. People sleep when they are tired and wake when they hear footsteps or water. Some keep watches, others simply rely on habit. You begin to understand how they lose count of weeks, how their skin pales, how their voices grow slow and careful. The darkness presses on you until you start to think of light as a memory rather than a thing. Above, millions of lights blaze, but none of it reaches here. Rob leads you to another chamber, where the walls are painted with streaks of color, remnants of an art project someone began years ago. Amid the gloom, the colors look almost holy, like stained glass seen through fog. A man named Jay lives there. He has been down here nearly a decade. His right eye is clouded white from an old gunshot wound. His space is neat, almost domestic. A bed of cardboard, a shelf made from milk crates, a picture taped to the wall of a child he has not seen in 10 years. "I used to have a house with a pool," he says. Not bragging, just remembering. "Now I got a roof that floods." His laugh is soft. He talks about the things that scare him, the floods. Yes, but also the silence that follows them, the way the tunnels seem to breathe afterward. "Sometimes I hear the city," he says, "like it is dreaming above us." Everywhere you look, there are traces of small systems, the economics of necessity. Bicycles serve as transportation, currency, and status. Whoever owns a bike can travel between tunnel sections or reach the surface faster when storms come. Water is gathered from hydrants or dripping pipes. Food stamps help, but theft and scavenging fill the gaps. They know which dumpsters behind which casinos throw out the most edible leftovers. Survival here is an education. Children grow up learning not arithmetic or grammar, but how to read the sounds of rushing water, how to sense when strangers enter their tunnels, how to judge if a flashlight beam means help or harm. You pass a small memorial, a cross made from 2 pieces of wood bound with tape, surrounded by plastic roses. Someone has written a name on it in marker, and below it a phrase, "Rest in peace, river of light." The air is damp and heavy with the smell of mildew. You can almost hear rain somewhere far off, maybe miles away, echoing through the drainage network. The thought that water could come again at any time makes you instinctively step closer to the walls. Rob notices and smiles grimly. "Yeah," he says, "that's the right instinct." There is beauty in the strangest corners. In one bend, a woman has strung beads and bottle caps like wind chimes. They clink faintly when the air moves. Another has drawn constellations in chalk on the concrete ceiling, stars no one can see from here. Down here, belief becomes survival. Some talk about God, others about karma, or the spirits of the tunnels themselves. Everyone believes in something, even if it is just the hope of surviving another flood. As your flashlight weakens, You start to feel the weight of the miles above your head, the hotels, the freeways, the laughter of tourists, all layered on top of this quiet human world. The city does not know they exist. Their names are not in any database. They have no identification, no fixed address. Without those, they cannot rent, work, or vote. On paper, they are not real. Yet you are standing among them, breathing the same air. It feels almost mythic, like a hidden chapter of civilization running parallel to the one that everyone else calls normal life. At last, you stop to rest. The sound of distant traffic filters faintly through the concrete like ocean surf. The air tastes of mineral and dust. You think of warmth not as comfort but as proof that you are alive. That is the truth of the tunnels. Life here is not measured in possessions or hours, but in small continuities. The same wall, the same blanket, the same friend still breathing when you wake. The longer you stay, the more the darkness starts to feel like shelter rather than prison. Above, the casinos keep shining. Below, the mole people keep enduring. Their lives are invisible, but they are there, fixing bikes, boiling water, whispering jokes that echo like distant bells. As the battery fades, you imagine the last thing they see before sleep. The slow drip of water from the ceiling, steady as a clock, marking time that belongs only to them. And that is where we will leave them for now, down in the hidden arteries of Las Vegas. A world within a world. Remember to come back up slowly. The light will feel too bright at first. But when you look at the city again, maybe you will think about what lies beneath it, and about the people who made a life where there was supposed to be none. The deeper you walk, the more the tunnels start to feel like neighborhoods rather than corridors. The sound changes. The hard echo of bare concrete softens into a muffled hush as walls are draped in blankets, tarps, and sheets. The darkness glows faintly from a few scattered lanterns powered by batteries scavenged from broken flashlights. The first thing you notice is how carefully the mole people build their homes, as if they are reconstructing the idea of domestic life piece by piece, using only what the city above throws away. A tarp becomes a ceiling, a mattress turns into insulation, wooden pallets become the floor that keeps sleeping bodies from the damp. Every corner is a decision made between comfort and safety, between privacy and airflow, between warmth and the fear of trapping smoke when they burn candles for light. Your eyes adjust to the dimness, revealing doorways cut into the piles of belongings, an entire architecture made of what others have forgotten. One man has built a living room out of discarded casino furniture. A once golden sofa, its cushions torn and stained, sits beside a table made of a cable spool. The legs of the sofa sink slightly into the dust, giving it the look of a ship grounded at low tide. Above it hangs a piece of fabric patterned with tropical leaves. It flutters gently when a draft rolls down the tunnel, making you think for a moment that there is wind here, though there is not. Another resident has arranged a row of old hotel mirrors to reflect any bit of light that enters, creating the illusion of a larger space. When a flashlight beam passes, the mirrors multiply it, scattering fragments of light across the damp ceiling like broken stars. Rob pauses beside a narrow passage where water trickles from a pipe. He points to the damp mark that reaches waist height on the wall. "That's the flood line from last August," he says. "It came fast. You can almost hear it, the roar of sudden water in a space that usually whispers." The people who live closest to the main drains build their shelters on raised platforms. They scavenge wooden crates, plastic drums, even the metal grates from dumpsters to keep their sleeping spaces off the floor. They say the trick is to build light and high. Anything too heavy to move will drown with you. Above every bed hangs a small shelf holding what matters most: a photograph, a lighter, a pack of cigarettes, a small radio, or sometimes nothing at all. The smell of smoke lingers, faint and oily. In the absence of electricity, fire is both friend and danger. Candles, kerosene lamps, and alcohol flames all cast trembling shadows that make walls breathe and bend. One careless moment and the entire shelter can vanish in minutes. So they learn to build safe zones, Old tin cans serve as lantern holders. Wet sand or soil lines the base of makeshift stoves. You watch a man named Tony test his burner, a shallow metal bowl filled with gel fuel. He strikes a lighter and a blue flame blossoms, steady and silent. You just let it dance, he says. Never turn your back on it. He places a small pot over it with the care of a chemist. Inside is water mixed with instant coffee, dark as the tunnel itself. The smell spreads quickly, warm and familiar, cutting through the scent of mildew and iron. There is a rhythm to their construction, a logic learned through necessity. Plastic sheeting for waterproofing, cardboard for insulation, duct tape for everything else. The ceilings are low, usually just high enough to sit up. People weave strings between pipes to hang clothes. Shoes line up at entrances like in traditional homes, though here it is less about cleanliness and more about keeping track of what little they own. Rob shows you how to read the walls. The spray-painted markings are more than graffiti. They are signposts. Some mark territories, others point to exits or warn of structural weaknesses where floods have eroded the concrete. The code evolves constantly, an underground language drawn in paint and memory. When the camera light sweeps across the floor, you notice a layer of crushed debris, bottle caps, coins, bits of paper, fragments of glass. It glitters faintly like a mosaic. Someone has arranged small stones in a circle near one entrance, almost like a hearth. In another shelter, an empty crate serves as a shrine, lined with tea candles and photographs of lost friends. The candle wax has melted down in thick layers, creating a waxy stalagmite that seems ancient, though it might be only a few months old. You kneel and run your hand across the concrete. It is cold, rough, and slightly damp. The temperature down here stays close to 15 degrees Celsius all year, sometimes dropping lower at night. In winter, that chill settles deep into the bones, so they layer everything: blankets, jackets, newspapers, anything to trap warmth. One woman named Christina shows you her insulation trick. She collects the silver emergency blankets discarded by tourists after marathons and wraps them between layers of fabric. They shimmer faintly, turning her small room into a cave of mirrored foil. Keeps the heat in, she says with a shy smile. And the light, too. When she turns on a flashlight, the reflections multiply, creating the illusion of dawn. For a few seconds, you almost forget where you are. This is architecture by ingenuity, not design, each shelter an equation balancing heat, airflow, privacy, and fear. In one section, someone has even built a second level, a loft made from metal scaffolding and plywood. It feels almost daring, suspended above the ground like hope refusing to sink. Beneath it, another resident sleeps surrounded by bicycles. The wheels are stacked in neat rows, their spokes catching glints of light. He trades bikes for survival, repairing them from parts he finds in dumpsters. Bikes are like cars down here, he explains. Without one, you are stuck. It makes sense. The tunnels stretch for kilometers, and walking them takes hours. A bike means freedom, escape from floods, or at least the chance to outrun them. You step carefully over a small stream running along the floor. The water is clear but smells faintly of chemicals. It seeps from the city above. Air conditioner runoff, perhaps, or irrigation leaks from manicured lawns. It becomes a resource nonetheless. They collect it in buckets to wash clothes or cool down in summer. During the rare desert rains, though, it transforms into a weapon. The older residents show you escape routes, narrow shafts leading to surface grates, some small enough to squeeze through only on your stomach. They memorize these routes the way sailors memorize stars. When the first rumble of water comes, they move fast. Some leave everything behind. Others try to save their pets or belongings. Many times those seconds decide life or death. The camera drifts over walls covered with drawings. Faces, slogans, prayers. Someone has painted a window with blue sky and clouds. An impossible landscape that feels almost cruel. Another has written a poem in marker ink. We are the veins of the city. When it bleeds, we flood. The writing is crooked but deliberate. Down here, art becomes both protest and proof of existence. The tunnels are not silent at night. The soundscape is a living thing, dripping water, faint echoes of footsteps, the rattle of a shopping cart, the low hum of distant traffic above, and sometimes music leaking faintly from a portable radio. The acoustics are strange. Sounds travel long distances and bend around corners. You can hear laughter from 100 meters away, but not the person breathing beside you. That dislocation becomes part of daily life, shaping how shelters are built, angled walls to muffle noise, makeshift curtains to absorb echoes. At one point, you find yourself standing beneath a grate. Shafts of sunlight pierce through in thin, trembling lines. Dust particles swirl like tiny planets suspended in orbit. Above, cars pass, oblivious. The light falls directly on a mattress where a man is mending his shoe with dental floss. He pauses to look up, eyes squinting against brightness. "That's my window," he says quietly. The light moves on as a cloud passes, and darkness returns. You feel it physically, the loss of color, the weight of shadow pressing close again. There is something profoundly human about their construction. Every wall, every string of hanging clothes, every candle is a statement. I am still here, in a world that forgot them. They build permanence from impermanence. You imagine how each shelter begins. A patch of dry ground, a piece of plastic, maybe a single night spent hiding from the cold. Then, slowly, it grows. A floorboard, a chair, a boundary, like coral reefs forming from shipwrecks. Their homes accrete from the debris of another civilization. The camera pans slowly across a long corridor lined with shelters on both sides, like an underground street. Smoke curls from a makeshift chimney made of aluminum foil and tubing. Someone has drawn arrows pointing to the library, a small alcove filled with damp dog-eared books rescued from trash bins. The titles vary wildly. Thrillers, cookbooks, a dictionary, a Bible. The pages smell of mold, but they are still read. Knowledge, too, is recycled down here. Later, as night deepens or what passes for night, you lie on the cool ground, listening. Somewhere, a dog barks. The air shifts, carrying the distant scent of rain. Rob looks up suddenly. Storms up in the mountains, he mutters. Could reach us by morning. You feel a tremor of unease. For those who live here, weather is not an abstract forecast. It is fate. They will check their walls, tighten ropes, stack valuables high. Yet there is no panic. They have seen it before. Their architecture is not built to resist nature, only to yield and survive it. As the scene fades, you understand that what looks like ruin is, in truth, resilience. These structures, fragile and temporary, hold the same intention as any grand building to create space for safety, warmth, and belonging. Down here, beneath the luxury and noise of Las Vegas, architecture becomes an act of defiance, a quiet declaration that life persists even in darkness, even without the sun. When hunger begins down here, it arrives quietly, not as a sharp pain, but as a slow erosion of thought. The air smells faintly of metal and damp paper. You start to imagine food long before you ever find it. Meals are scavenged, assembled, conjured from what the surface world discards. There are no kitchens, no stoves, only the steady ingenuity of people who refuse to starve. You follow Rob through a narrow tunnel where the walls sweat with condensation. The ground slopes downward toward a cluster of flickering lanterns. The closer you get, the stronger the scent becomes. Smoke, salt, instant noodles, and the sour note of hand sanitizer burning as fuel. A group has gathered around a circle of concrete blocks. At the center, an aluminum pan sits over a low blue flame, the improvised burner balanced on a bed of sand to keep from melting the floor. The cook, a woman called Beverly, stirs the contents with a plastic fork melted almost to its handle. Steam curls upward, carrying the scent of canned beans and whatever seasoning she could find. Around her are neat piles of supplies, dented cans, instant soup packets, half-empty bottles of oil. Every ingredient has a story. You learn which casinos throw out the good stuff, she says with a grin. The buffet leftovers go in sealed bags. That means it's safe. Her hands move fast, flipping a piece of bread she has toasted on a strip of metal scavenged from a ventilation panel. The bread is blackened but smells warm, familiar, human. The rules of cooking underground are simple. Waste nothing, share often, and always guard your flame. Fuel is life. They use everything that burns: wax, sanitizer gel, alcohol, even scraps of wood smuggled in from construction sites. Plastic burns dirty, coating the air with a sticky haze, but sometimes it is the only option. To save their lungs, they fan smoke towards drainage vents using cardboard sheets. The firelight flickers on faces, turning the tunnel walls gold. Someone hums an old song. You sit beside them, the floor cool through your jeans, watching condensation drip from the ceiling into a metal pot. That water, filtered through a sock and boiled 3 times, will become tonight's tea. Across the corridor, another man tends to a smaller fire built inside a hollow cinder block. He is heating soup from a convenience store can, the label half burned away. His name is Tony, and he talks while he cooks, voice rough from years of smoke. You find things in trash behind the casinos, sandwiches, steak sometimes, still warm. You just have to get there before they pour bleach on it. He laughs softly, not bitter, just practical. Around him hang plastic bags tied to hooks in the ceiling. His pantry, each one is labeled with a marker: rice, beans, coffee, sugar. The organization feels almost military. Everything has to be off the floor, he says. Rats, water, everything wants what you got. He hands you a cup of thin broth. It tastes mostly of salt, but the warmth spreads through your chest, reminding you that comfort can be rebuilt from almost nothing. The tunnel's economy revolves around food. Cans of tuna and instant noodles are currency. Cigarettes are credit. Those who manage to get food stamps buy staples and trade them for protection or companionship. You meet a man named Phil who calls himself the grocer. He has a cooler filled with drinks bought with spare change. He keeps it cold by placing it near the air vent where cooler desert air flows in. I sell sodas for 1 cigarette each, he says. Keeps me busy, keeps people friendly. His stall is decorated with Christmas lights powered by a small battery. The lights blink weakly, like the heartbeat of the underground. For protein, some residents fish in runoff pools that form where the tunnels widen. Others collect discarded meat from grocery dumpsters, washing and recooking it until safe. They tell you the best time to search is just before dawn, when the city sleeps but the garbage trucks have not yet come. The bravest climb the storm drains to reach the dumpsters behind hotel kitchens. It is a dangerous climb, slippery, steep, often patrolled by security, but one good haul can feed several people for days. When they return, they divide the food evenly, and for a few hours the tunnel smells almost festive. Water, though, remains the most constant worry. Rainwater is too unpredictable, and tap connections are too far away. Most rely on the same hydrant in a service corridor near the strip. The hydrant leaks slowly, dripping into buckets. They call it the fountain. Each person takes turns filling jugs and carrying them back through the dark. During summer, when the desert heat above climbs past 40 degrees Celsius, the air below becomes heavy and stale, making that walk feel endless. In winter, the air cools to 15 degrees or less, and water turns cold enough to numb the fingers. Yet they still carry it, 1 bucket at a time, because thirst is worse than cold. You watch as Beverly opens a can of fruit cocktail, its syrup thick and golden under the flashlight. She divides it into small paper cups, 1 for each person. The taste is startlingly sweet, almost sacred after days of salt and smoke. For a moment the group laughs, trading stories of lucky finds. One man once discovered a whole box of granola bars. Another tells of a bag of coffee grounds found unspoiled. These are the legends of the underworld passed along like fairy tales. Hunger has its own folklore here. As the meal ends, they clean with precision. Nothing is thrown away. The cans are washed, flattened, and stored for recycling. The leftover broth is poured into a small container to be reheated later. Even ashes from the fire are saved. They help absorb smell and moisture. Every gesture speaks of adaptation. You start to realize that this underground cooking, fragile and smoky, is a continuation of the oldest human act, the making of warmth and sustenance in the dark. It connects them to every cave-dwelling ancestor, every wanderer who built a fire against the cold. Later, you follow Rob deeper into a corridor where a faint light pulses ahead. The smell of bleach and damp cardboard thickens. A man crouches beside a drain, washing dishes in a trickle of water that smells faintly metallic. He scrubs each spoon with sand, rinses, and sets it on a towel to dry. "Clean stuff don't get you sick," he says. "Down here, you gotta play doctor, chef, and janitor all in one." His hands are scarred, fingertips blackened from burns, yet his movements are careful, almost ritualistic. The tunnel grows quieter as people settle into sleep. Fires dim, leaving only the faint red glow of embers. Somewhere a radio plays a slow country song. The sound mixes with the dripping water and the soft rustle of blankets. You think about the surface world, about buffets overflowing with untouched food, about restaurants pouring gallons of leftovers into the trash. The contrast feels too large to hold in your mind. Yet here in the Undercity, a can of beans is a feast, and a shared meal is enough to build trust between strangers. Rob sits beside you, eating from a dented tin. "You know," he says, "people think we're down here because we gave up, but it's not giving up. It's surviving when no one else looks." He chews slowly, then sets the can aside. "Up there they build towers that touch the clouds. Down here we build warmth that touches people." His words linger long after he stops talking. The sound of your breathing fills the silence. You can feel the weight of the city pressing down above you. 15 meters of concrete, soil, and noise. But in this small space there is peace. As the last fire burns out, the darkness folds in again. You can still smell smoke and salt, still taste the syrup of canned fruit on your tongue. It feels almost like communion, a brief reminder of what connects every human life, the need to eat, to share, to keep the flame alive one more night. When morning comes, if morning can even exist underground, it begins not with sunlight but with the shuffle of fabric. You wake to the soft crackle of plastic and the slow rustle of layered clothes being pulled on in the half-dark. Down here, clothing is not fashion, it is armor. The air holds a steady chill of 15 degrees Celsius, but the dampness makes it feel colder, as if the concrete itself is breathing against your skin. Every layer matters. Sweatshirts stacked over hoodies, jeans over pajama pants, plastic ponchos over everything else. The mole people have turned the act of dressing into survival engineering. Each item is a memory of the world above, a casino uniform, a promotional jacket, a towel once printed with hotel logos. Together they form a patchwork history of Las Vegas, written in thread and grime. You watch a woman named Karen fold her blanket into a shawl, wrapping it tight before tying a shoelace around her waist to keep it closed. She has learned to waterproof her sleeves by coating them with melted candle wax, spreading it thin and letting it dry. "It keeps the rain out," she says with a tired laugh. Her gloves are mismatched, one pink, one black, and the fingertips have been reinforced with duct tape. When you ask how long she has been wearing them, she shrugs. 3 winters maybe. Down here, winters just mean the wet lasts longer. Winter. The tunnels amplify temperature like a cave in summer. The heat radiates through the walls. In winter, the cold sinks deep. Clothing becomes the only insulation between body and concrete. They collect fabrics obsessively. Piles of blankets form small mountains at the edges of living spaces, sorted by texture and warmth. Cotton for summer, fleece for nights when the air feels like stone. A man named Jay shows you his proudest creation, a coat stitched together from pieces of casino carpet. The pattern still glimmers faintly, a ghost of gold and crimson. "It used to be lucky," he says, smiling. "Now it is just heavy enough to keep me alive." He lines the inside with grocery bags to block the wind that snakes through the tunnels after a storm. Footwear tells another story. Shoes rot quickly in the damp, so everyone guards them like treasure. When the soles wear through, they cut pieces of rubber tubing or cardboard to glue inside. Some wrap their feet in plastic before sliding them into wet shoes, creating makeshift waterproof liners. Others use duct tape, winding it tight enough to shine silver in the lantern light. The smell of rubber, sweat, and mildew blends into the air, a scent as constant as the dripping water. You notice how they dry their shoes hung from ropes near small fires, turning them every few minutes to keep from scorching. It is delicate work, more like tending bread than clothing, because one burnt sole means days of walking barefoot on cold concrete. Among the piles of scavenged fabric, there is unexpected artistry. People dye clothes with rust, coffee, or melted crayons, creating strange streaks of color that catch the eye. One man paints words on his jacket with white correction fluid. "Still here." Another stitches buttons into spirals on his sleeves, saying it keeps away bad luck. Down here, customization becomes identity. In a place where everything is grey and anonymous, a single splash of color is defiance. You pass a group sewing in a circle lit by a camping lantern. Their needles glint like tiny sparks. They are repairing blankets for newcomers expected after the next flood pushes more people underground. Their thread is fishing line, strong and translucent. They sew through denim, canvas, even pieces of tarp. When someone jokes about Fashion Week, laughter rolls through the space, brief but warm. "If they knew how we dress, they would sell it for thousands," one says, and everyone laughs harder. Humor, too, is insulation. Somewhere in the dark, a portable radio plays static mixed with faint music from the surface. The sound makes you think of open air, of wind against skin. You start to feel how clothing becomes memory, each piece connecting them to seasons they no longer see. A red scarf might recall Christmas lights. A pair of sunglasses, a day that once had sun. They wear layers not only to keep warm but to carry fragments of the world they lost. Later you visit the closet, a space Rob built from a side passage where donations from local charities are sorted. Volunteers occasionally drop bags of clothes through a grate above, unaware of where they land. The residents collect them and organize by type: jackets, shoes, children's wear. When someone new arrives soaked and shivering, they are brought here first. The air smells of detergent and dust. For a moment it feels almost domestic, like a thrift store in another life. Rob holds up a sequined dress someone found last month. "We kept it," he says, "for the parties we never have." His grin fades into quiet, but the sparkle of the fabric lingers, catching the flashlight beam like water. Textiles down here do more than cover bodies. They build walls, doors, privacy. Blankets hung from ropes separate one home from another. Heavy quilts serve as sound barriers. Even the smallest piece of fabric finds purpose. A rag for cleaning, a sleeve for wiping condensation, a curtain to shield from light when someone sleeps. The entire underground city breathes through its fabrics, absorbing moisture, muting echoes, holding the warmth of human presence. One rare morning, after a dry night, sunlight breaks through a surface grate and lands on a wall of hanging clothes. The colors ignite: faded reds, denim blues, a flash of green. Dust rises in the beam, making it look as if the garments are floating underwater. People stop what they are doing to watch. For 30 seconds, maybe less. The tunnels look alive with color. Then a cloud passes, and the light fades. But the silence that follows is reverent, as though they have witnessed something sacred. You realize that clothing here is more than necessity. It is communication. A bright hat signals friendliness. A dark hoodie means solitude. A bandana tied to a sleeve shows allegiance to a group. Even shoes tell stories. brand logos revealing which casinos throw away their lost and found items first. In this hidden society, fabric is language. As the night settles again, you watch someone carefully roll their extra clothes into a bundle, tucking it under their head as a pillow. The fabric sighs softly beneath them. In the distance, another person shakes out a blanket, the sound like a bird taking flight. The rhythm of cloth becomes the rhythm of life here, folding, wrapping, layering, always keeping one barrier between skin and stone. And as you finally close your eyes, listening to the faint rustle of jackets and blankets, you understand that warmth down here is never given. It is made. Every stitch, every patch, every worn thread is a small act of endurance. In the world beneath the world, survival is woven one layer at a time. By the time you learn the layout of the tunnels, you begin to sense how trade moves through them like an invisible current. Every sound of rolling wheels means value. Shopping carts repurposed into delivery wagons, bicycle tires squeaking under loads of scrap, the dull rattle of aluminum cans filling plastic bags. Currency here is not paper, it is metal, calories and time. The mole people operate on an economy built entirely from what the surface abandons. Above them, billions of dollars shift hands in casinos every night. Down here, a handful of copper wire or a single working flashlight battery can decide whether someone eats or sleeps in safety. The market wakes before dawn, or what passes for dawn underground. In a wide chamber marked by graffiti arrows, people gather to exchange goods. The air smells of oil, rubber, and faint sweetness from old soda cans. Flashlight beams dance across walls like spotlights at a concert no one else will ever see. A man named Nate keeps watch at the entrance, his eyes sharp for police or outsiders. "We trade quiet," he says. "Noise brings trouble." On a blanket spread across the concrete are today's offerings: canned food, bottled water, small tools, and bits of copper tubing coiled like snakes. Behind him, two others sort through piles of clothing, checking for dry socks. Everything is second-hand, third-hand, but handled with the seriousness of jewelers. Aluminum is the bloodstream of this underground economy. Every crushed can is worth a few cents at the recycling yards when someone risks a trip to the surface. Rob explains how they gather it. The collectors head out before sunrise, pushing carts through deserted streets, searching casino dumpsters and alleyways. They move fast before security can chase them away. By mid-morning, they return through maintenance hatches, their carts clattering like skeletons. The bags of cans are washed in drainage water and stacked neatly, waiting for the next sell day. A full load can bring $10 or $20, enough for food, batteries, maybe new blankets. It's honest work, Rob says, though the smile that follows is weary. Barter here replaces trust. Every exchange carries a story. You watch as Tony trades a lighter and 2 cans of soup for a small battery-powered fan. In the tunnels, airflow is treasure. Another man offers cigarettes in exchange for a half-used tube of antibiotic cream. They shake hands solemnly, sealing the deal. No one writes anything down. Memory is ledger, and reputation is credit. If you cheat once, you trade alone forever. Bicycles link this economy to the outer world. They are both transport and status symbol. Skilled mechanics maintain them with salvaged parts, their workshops glowing faintly from lantern light. Chains are cleaned with cooking oil, tires patched with melted plastic, gears repaired with wire and prayer. You can hear the steady rhythm of a pump inflating a tire, echoing through concrete like a heartbeat. For 5 cigarettes, someone will fix your brakes. For a can of tuna, they will find you a chain. When flash floods sweep through, bikes are hung high on walls, tied with rope like lifeboats waiting for the next voyage. Beyond the tunnels lies the scavenging circuit, the path the mole people walk through the sleeping city. It begins in the hotel district, passes dumpsters behind buffets, winds through construction sites, and ends near the recycling depot on the industrial edge of town. Each stop has its risks. Security cameras, police patrols, sudden fences where open gaps used to be. Those who venture out at night wear layers of dark clothing and carry backpacks lined with plastic to muffle sound. They move like shadows under the same neon that dazzles tourists. When they return, the hall is sorted communally. Someone found batteries. Someone else brought bread still wrapped in plastic. A broken radio is passed around like treasure until someone with patience coaxes it back to life. The concept of ownership blurs down here. A found object belongs first to the one who discovered it, but keeping it means defending it. That is why so many homes are half hidden behind curtains or marked with signs, sometimes a symbol, sometimes just a handprint in paint. Theft happens, of course, but the punishment is social rather than violent. A thief loses allies, loses warning calls when floods come. In a world without law, isolation is the harshest sentence. Trade also flows through favors and knowledge. Knowing which storm drains connect to which casinos is worth as much as a week of food. Knowing which guards look away can earn you a safe route for months. Information travels fast. Gossip is currency, and stories become bonds of trust. Around the fires, people trade tales of great discoveries, a dumpster full of unopened soda, a dropped wallet that paid rent for 3 months, a stash of camping supplies found after a convention. The telling of these stories becomes ceremony, reminding everyone that luck still exists even here. Occasionally, outsiders descend, volunteers with supplies, charity workers, or documentarians. Their arrival is both blessing and disruption. Some residents trade cooperation for gifts, a pack of batteries for an interview, a bottle of water for guiding a camera crew. Others retreat deeper, unwilling to be exposed. The community debates afterward whether these visits help or harm. They take our stories up there, one man says, but the rain still comes down here. Yet even cynicism becomes part of trade, the exchange of dignity for recognition, however fleeting. You follow Rob as he guides you to what he calls the vault, a large chamber near a maintenance tunnel where the air feels cooler. Here they store their collective wealth, bags of aluminum, old tools, extra blankets sealed in plastic, and one small chest filled with keepsakes, rings, watches, keys that no longer open anything. We keep them, Rob explains, for remembering that we had houses once. He runs his fingers over a rusted keychain shaped like the Eiffel Tower. The gesture is tender, almost reverent. In this place where money has little meaning, these small tokens carry emotional currency, proof that life once had locks, doors, and the promise of returning. As evening approaches, trade gives way to hospitality. People gather to share whatever they earned that day. The smell of food fills the corridors again. Beans, rice, the faint sweetness of instant coffee. Deals are forgotten. Rivalries soften. Music drifts from a portable speaker running on borrowed batteries. You see laughter, clinking cups, someone dancing barefoot on concrete. In those moments, barter transforms into community. They may own nothing permanent, but they create value in companionship, in mutual survival, in the small mercies exchanged between the living. Later, as the fires fade and the corridors darken, you realize that their underground economy mirrors the surface world perfectly, only stripped of illusion. Above, people trade money for power. Below, they trade time for warmth. Both systems depend on faith, that what you give will somehow return. The difference is honesty. Down here, no one pretends that trade is anything but survival. When you finally leave the market, the tunnels grow quiet again. You can still hear the faint roll of a cart somewhere far off, wheels squeaking like distant gulls. The sound fades into the pulse of dripping water. The city above will never notice that commerce hums beneath its streets, invisible and unending, powered not by electricity but by human will. Illness announces itself slowly here. The air is cool but thick, filled with spores and dust that never quite settle. Each breath carries the tang of mildew and rust, faint but relentless, creeping into lungs like a whispered warning. You hear coughs echoing down corridors, dry at first, then wet, then silent for days. There are no hospitals underground, only knowledge passed mouth to mouth, memory to memory, like old folklore. The mole people learn to treat their wounds with what the city throws away. Bandages are made from torn t-shirts. Antiseptic is rubbing alcohol begged from volunteers or scavenged from first aid kits left in alleyways. Every infection becomes a negotiation between the body and the environment. A woman named Beverly acts as nurse for this section of the tunnels. Her clinic is a plastic table covered with bottles, peroxide, ibuprofen, antibiotic ointment, and a single treasured Narcan spray for overdoses. She knows who is diabetic, who has asthma, who shakes from withdrawal. She measures time by refilling water bottles and listening to heartbeats. You keep people breathing, she says simply. That is the job. When someone overdoses, the ritual is swift. Head tilted back, spray to the nostril, a slap on the cheek, a prayer muttered under breath. Then a wait of 30 seconds that feels like eternity. If the chest rises again, cheers ripple through the darkness. If it does not, silence swallows everything. The smell of medicine mixes with smoke and sweat. You watch her cut open a plastic bag to create a sterile surface. She cleans a gash on a man's hand with peroxide. The fizzing sound loud in the quiet. The man winces but does not pull away. Pain down here is expected, even respected. People talk about injuries like weather, inevitable, temporary, something to be endured. They treat fevers with wet rags pressed to the forehead, colds with instant coffee thickened into syrup. Some chew herbs scavenged from the dry desert edges when they dare venture out, creosote for its bitter antiseptic taste, sage for comfort, mint when they can find it. Old knowledge merges with improvisation, creating a kind of folk medicine born of necessity. Water hygiene is their constant battle. Without plumbing, every drop must be judged by color and smell. They boil it 3 times when they can, or filter through layers of cloth. In the dampest tunnels, black mold grows on walls like velvet. People scrub it away with bleach stolen from janitorial closets, coughing as the fumes rise. Better burn your lungs than your house, one man jokes grimly. Skin infections are common, so they bathe in runoff water mixed with dish soap, scrubbing until the skin burns. Those with open wounds wrap them in plastic before sleep to keep out the rats. Even rest becomes a medical procedure. Mental health hides behind humor. At night, voices echo strangely, and the line between imagination and fear blurs. Some say the tunnels whisper back, soft sounds like footsteps just beyond sight. Others confess that they speak to shadows to stay sane. You meet a man called Phil, who carries a small notebook filled with sketches. Each drawing is of a door. When I get anxious, he says, I draw a way out. His pencil lines are shaky but determined, each door opening onto a place that might have sunlight. The drawings serve as therapy, and reminder that the mind too needs architecture. There is an unspoken medical code. Everyone carries at least one painkiller or one lighter, something to trade when someone gets hurt. Fire disinfects, light warns, and heat soothes aching joints in the damp cold. The average tunnel temperature never climbs above 15 degrees Celsius, and the moisture seeps into bones. Old injuries stiffen, muscles tighten. They call it tunnel rheumatism. To fight it, people stretch beside their beds, twisting slowly to keep limbs from freezing in their sockets. Someone has written exercise instructions on a wall in marker, simple stick figures lifting their arms. Beneath it, a line reads, "Move or mold." Addiction moves through the tunnels like weather, sometimes calm, sometimes storm. You see evidence everywhere, spoons blackened by flame, belts turned into tourniquets, eyes that drift in and out of focus. Yet you also see recovery in its rawest form. People hold each other upright through withdrawal, whispering stories of sobriety like bedtime tales. Beverly keeps a list of clean days scratched onto the wall, each line representing someone still alive. This, she says, pointing to it, is my calendar. They rely on charity runs and outreach teams that visit once a week, handing out clean needles, vitamins and medical kits. When the volunteers arrive, the tunnels transform into triage lines. People step forward shyly, holding out their arms for bandages, their dogs for vaccines. For a few hours, the space fills with a smell of alcohol swabs and new gauze. Children from nearby encampments laugh when given bright band-aids shaped like stars. The volunteers leave quickly before dark, their footsteps echoing toward the surface. After they go, the residents organize supplies carefully, rationing every pill. Some injuries never heal. The scars from floods, burns, knife wounds from old fights. Each mark tells a story told only when trust is earned. Rob shows you a pale line across his forearm. Got that when the last flood came, he says. Cut by debris, not water. The way he says water makes it sound like an enemy. Floods come without warning, bringing infections, debris, disease. Survivors emerge soaked and shivering, skin grey from shock. Those who live long enough learn to treat hypothermia instinctively. Strip wet clothes, wrap in plastic, hold close. Human contact becomes medicine. Even in sickness, vanity flickers. You see a woman apply eyeliner using a broken mirror, hands trembling but precise. Makes me feel alive, she says. Hygiene becomes identity. People wash their faces with bottled water, brush teeth with baking soda, comb hair with plastic forks. Cleanliness, even symbolic, is defiance against decay. In these acts, they claim control over bodies that the world has forgotten. As night deepens, a chill wind moves through the tunnel network, carrying the scent of rain. The community braces quietly. Flood means danger, but also renewal. Debris swept out, air refreshed. They prepare emergency packs, plastic bags filled with medicine, flashlights, and food. Rob ties his to his belt, ready to run at the first sound of water. Health is timing, he mutters. You move fast, you live. The truth of it hangs heavy. Survival here is not measured in years, but in reactions per second. Later, you sit near Beverly's clinic, listening to the slow drip of condensation into a pan. She hums softly while sorting pills by size. Around her, sleeping figures breathe in rhythm. In the dim light, she looks like a priestess presiding over a small congregation of the wounded. The air smells faintly of iodine and candle wax. For a moment, the tunnels feel like a hospital built by ghosts, a place where healing is not a science, but a stubborn insistence that life continues. And as the last candle burns low, you realize that endurance down here is its own form of medicine. They mend each other with patience, humor, and touch. They breathe through dust, wash with rain, dream despite exhaustion. Health, in the world below, is not absence of pain but presence of persistence. Each heartbeat echoing through the concrete is a diagnosis of survival. Faith begins in darkness. Down here, belief is not built in temples of marble but in whispers and candlelight. The mole people do not preach. They remember. They build their faith from fragments. A cross scratched into concrete, a lucky coin glued to a wall, a photograph taped beside a melted candle. When you walk these tunnels long enough, you start to see a pattern, shrines hidden like seeds in the corners, offerings to gods that have no names anymore. One wall holds a mural of blue wings painted with toothpaste and soot. Someone has written beneath it, "For the ones who made it through the water." It is not art for admiration. It is remembrance disguised as decoration. Spiritual life in the tunnels follows its own calendar. Floods are the only holy days. Each one erases and renews, washing away old pain, forcing the living to rebuild. The first clear morning after a storm, the survivors gather near the entrance shafts where sunlight drips through the grates. They lay out what remains, soaked blankets, warped photographs, broken candles, and thank whatever force kept them alive. Some call it God, others call it luck, chance, or the stubborn mercy of the desert. Whatever the name, gratitude becomes prayer. At night, Faith takes sound. You hear it before you see it. Soft humming from deep within the tunnel, a melody without words. Following it leads you to a circle of people sitting cross-legged around a single lantern. They are not praying exactly, but remembering songs from childhood churches, mosques, or temples. Each voice carries a different accent, a different theology, but together they form a harmony older than doctrine. The lantern light trembles over their faces, turning sweat into gold. Between verses, silence stretches like an inhale, and someone whispers a name of the dead. No one speaks afterward, they just listen to the echo fade, the sound of memory moving down the corridor like incense. You find one man who calls himself bishop, though no one knows if he ever was one. His cathedral is a maintenance chamber lined with reflective foil. He keeps it spotless, wiping away the grime with bleach until the walls shine. In the center stands an old milk crate covered with a white sheet, a makeshift altar. On it sits a Bible missing half its pages, a rosary made from soda tabs, and a small glass of water he calls his holy spring. He invites anyone who passes to sit, to talk, to confess. I am not here to save souls, he says with a smile that is half tired, half radiant. I am here to remind them they still have one. He blesses people not with words but with gesture, pressing his hand briefly to their forehead, leaving behind the smell of bleach and warmth. Faith also lives in superstition. People knock twice before entering a neighbor's shelter to ward off bad luck. They hang empty bottles upside down to trap evil spirits, an idea borrowed from the southern states. Some carry rabbit feet, others wear bracelets woven from electrical wire. A woman named Desiree swears by a small plastic angel she found in the trash outside a toy store. She keeps it in her pocket and rubs it whenever she hears thunder. It keeps the water away, she says simply. Whether true or not, no one argues. Down here, belief itself is a form of shelter. Death is frequent enough to require its own rituals. There is no cemetery underground, only the places where people last stood. When someone dies, the others gather whatever flowers they can salvage from casino dumpsters. They light candles, sometimes scented, sometimes half-burned, and sing quietly while smoke curls into the low ceiling. If the body can be carried out, they bring it to the surface and leave a marker near the tunnel entrance. A cross made of pipe, a circle of stones, a phrase written in chalk. If not, they mark the wall instead. A simple RIP followed by a first name is enough. The city forgets them, Rob says, tracing a name with his fingertip, but we don't. Light itself becomes sacred. Candles are treated like relics. When one burns too low, its wax is melted and poured into another, binding flames together across nights. Some people line the tunnel walls with mirrors to multiply the glow, turning a single flame into a field of stars. Others paint halos around light fixtures using white chalk. The result is haunting corridors that look like constellations drawn by people who have never seen the real sky. For those who have been underground for years, this is the only cosmos they know. The psychological gravity of faith here is profound. In a world without sunlight or certainty, belief gives shape to time. Sunday is whenever someone decides to sing. Midnight Mass is whenever someone cannot sleep. Confession is a conversation shared over instant coffee. Even atheists adopt ritual without realizing it, tapping walls before floods, aligning their sleeping mats eastward toward distant mountains, keeping their shoes pointing toward the nearest exit. Every habit becomes liturgy. You meet a young man painting with soot on a concrete wall. The image is of a staircase ascending into clouds. "It's for my mother," he says. "She used to say heaven was a climb." He finishes a step, wipes his hands and smiles. "Guess we are already halfway there." His laugh is soft, unsure whether he means it as a joke or a truth. During holidays above ground, faint music seeps down through grates, carols, fireworks, cheers. Down here, the echoes become their own celebration. People light what few candles they have left, share food, and for one night pretend they are part of the city again. They tell stories about old Christmases, old Thanksgivings, old birthdays that happened in houses with roofs and windows. Someone strums a broken guitar with 3 strings. The sound is thin but beautiful. For those few hours, belief is not about gods but about belonging. When you finally sit alone listening to the fading hum of distant voices, you realize that faith in the tunnels is not organized religion. It is endurance transformed into reverence. Every act of cleaning, every shared meal, every candle lit against darkness becomes an offering to survival itself. These people worship continuity, the daily miracle of still being here when the city above forgets they exist. And as the lanterns dim, you sense that the true sacred space is not in any shrine or song, but in the heartbeat echoing against concrete, multiplied by 1,000 others, steady and defiant in the dark. Childhood underground is an act of imagination. There are no classrooms here, no chalkboards, no playgrounds, yet somehow, children learn. They memorize the rhythm of dripping water before they can spell their names, count time by the squeak of carts rolling through corridors, and read shadows like pages. You first meet a boy of 7 crouched near a puddle, pushing a paper boat made from a torn food label. He watches it drift toward the drain with fierce concentration, as though testing an experiment. His mother calls softly from behind a curtain. "Stay close to the wall," she warns, and he nods, eyes still fixed on the little boat's slow voyage into darkness. In that simple motion, paper folding, water moving, child observing, you see how education here begins, through survival, through wonder, through the things the city throws away. The tunnels themselves are textbooks. Every wall teaches physics, every sound teaches geography. The adults point out cracks that mark weak spots in the structure, teach children to measure sound delay to know distance, and explain how air pressure changes before a flood. Knowledge here is not about history, dates, or arithmetic, but about instincts, when to run, when to stay, when to trust silence. The children learn to read the smell of rain coming miles away, to distinguish between harmless trickles and deadly flow. In the absence of formal education, the city above becomes myth, a place of bright light and noise they glimpse only through grates. Some think of it as heaven, others as danger. "Up there," one boy says, pointing to the ceiling, "the floor never moves." There are few children, but their presence changes everything. Adults soften their voices when they pass. Fights pause, jokes quiet. Even the hardest faces lift slightly when a child laughs. One tunnel section is known simply as the school, though there are no teachers. It is a wide space painted with chalk drawings of animals, stars, and numbers. The floor is littered with books rescued from dumpsters, dog-eared paperbacks, old magazines, a math workbook missing half its pages. An older woman named Marianne runs small reading sessions by lantern light. She cannot read well herself, but she remembers stories, and that is enough. "I tell them about the sun," she says, "because they deserve to know it exists." The children sit cross-legged, faces glowing orange, listening as if hearing a prophecy. The sound of their voices echoes like birds in a cave. They practice words aloud, their accents shaped by the hollow acoustics of concrete. When they laugh, it feels like daylight. You realize how extraordinary it is that knowledge still finds a way to survive here. Lessons pass not through institutions, but through people. Shared recipes, safety tips, maps drawn in chalk. The older youth teach newcomers how to fix a bike, how to patch a leak, how to cook with sanitizer flames. Apprenticeship replaces formal schooling. "You learn or you drown," Rob says. That's the curriculum. There is one child, 11 years old, who carries a flashlight as if it were a diploma. He calls himself an engineer and spends hours building contraptions from scraps. Fans powered by old phone batteries, traps for rats, even a small pulley system that lifts supplies from lower tunnels. His hands move confidently, his mind quick. When asked how he learned, he says simply, "I watch." Observation is the first science here. Nothing is wasted, not even curiosity. Play exists too, though it is quiet. The children kick plastic bottles like soccer balls, draw hopscotch squares in dust, invent games of echo and hide and seek among the walls. Their laughter bounces through the corridors, startling bats that flutter from cracks. For a few moments, the tunnels feel alive, as if the concrete itself is listening. One girl shows you her treasure box: marbles, bottle caps, a feather, and a single piece of blue glass that catches light. "It is sky," she says solemnly, holding it up. You realize she has never actually seen one. Discipline, when it happens, is gentle. Adults teach through stories, not punishment. They share cautionary tales about floods, injuries, and trust betrayed. A favorite is the legend of the forgotten key, a parable about someone who ignored the sound of water and lost their home. Every retelling adds new details, and each child listens as if decoding survival instructions hidden inside the myth. Oral tradition becomes their textbook, passed from one generation of the unseen to the next. Sometimes volunteers from the surface bring supplies, coloring books, pencils, learning kits. The children gather shyly, accepting crayons like gifts from another world. For a few hours, the tunnels bloom with color. Drawings cover the walls: houses, trees, suns with wide, smiling faces. The adults stand nearby, watching their own expressions somewhere between pride and grief. They draw what they've never seen. Marianne murmurs, running her hand along a child's chalk sun, but they draw it right. At night, when fires dim, learning continues through stories. Each family, or what passes for family, tells one before sleep. Some are true, some imagined, but all teach something: how to find your way by sound, how to hide from strangers, how to hope. You listen to an old man describe the stars to a child, tracing them on the wall with a stick of charcoal. They are holes, he explains, where light from heaven leaks through. The child stares, eyes wide, and asks how many holes there are. "Too many to count," the man replies softly. "That's how we know heaven is big enough for all of us." The story ends, and both fall quiet, the child curling beneath a blanket, as the man hums a lullaby older than memory. The older youth sometimes leave the tunnels to explore the surface, returning with tales of sunlight, cars, and crowds. They describe colors so bright that they hurt the eyes. The younger ones listen in awe, treating these accounts like fables from another realm. In this way, oral education bridges the two worlds, the city of light above and the city of shadow below. Each story carries warnings and dreams, preparing them for both survival and imagination. And through it all, the tunnels themselves teach patience. They teach how to listen before moving, how to share before asking, how to adapt without surrendering. When you ask one child what he wants to be when he grows up, he answers without hesitation, "above." You smile, realizing that in his mind, elevation itself is a profession, a goal, a calling. He does not mean fame or wealth, he means sunlight. As the scene fades, the echo of children's voices lingers, a thin but steady reminder that learning continues even in darkness. Knowledge is the last luxury they can still afford, the only inheritance that cannot be washed away by the next flood. Down here, to know something is to survive one more day, and to teach it is to keep humanity alive. Social life underground forms like stalactites, slowly, drop by drop, held together by routine and repetition. There is no law down here, no written charter or elected leader, yet order exists in its own organic way. People claim territory the way coral grows, by inhabiting, defending, and leaving traces of themselves, until the space feels lived in. Over time, these claimed areas blend into districts, each with its own rhythm. Some tunnels stay quiet, meant for families or the sick. Others hum with music, arguments, laughter. Even in the shadows, human instinct arranges itself into neighborhoods. You hear the pulse of life through the sound of radios. Old portable speakers hooked to scavenged batteries play music that filters through the tunnels like perfume. Rock in one corridor, gospel in another, mariachi echoing faintly in the next. Sound becomes a signature, a way to say someone lives here. The music helps people navigate when flashlights fail. The ear becomes a compass. When two songs overlap, it means you are crossing boundaries. To survive here, you learn not to step too loudly where another's music rules. Evenings bring the social hour, a fragile imitation of normalcy. After dinner, groups gather around the widest corridors where fires burn low. Someone strums a guitar missing a string. Someone else tells jokes about the absurdity of Las Vegas, a city of gold and light that builds its catacombs out of concrete. The humor is dark but harmless. We live under $15 billion, one man says, and still cannot find a dollar bill that is dry. Laughter erupts deep and real. It bounces off the walls, returning multiplied. For a moment, it sounds like an entire audience is laughing with them. Friendship here is not chosen but grown. Shared danger bonds faster than shared interest. People remember who helped during the last flood, who shouted warnings, who pulled a mattress to safety. Debts are repaid with food, with light, with silence when it is needed. Conversations often begin with "you good" and end with "stay dry." There are few arguments that last long. Grudges are a luxury when the next storm might take you both. In this fragile world, forgiveness is practical, not moral. Romance finds its way here too. Tender and cautious, couples carve initials into the walls. Though names fade quickly beneath new paint or soot, privacy is rare, so affection hides in gestures. A shared blanket, a cigarette lit without being asked, a whisper of "you awake?" in the middle of the night. Sometimes relationships form between people who have never seen each other in full light. Faces are guessed by voice, by the sound of breath. We fall in love with echoes. One woman says, "It is safer that way." Still, the tunnels are not free of conflict. Theft, jealousy, noise, all ignite tension. When arguments escalate, they are handled communally. The oldest residents act as mediators, sitting both sides down by lantern light. They speak in low voices, calm and slow. Fights are rarely about money. They are about trust and respect. Two currencies more valuable here than food. Once peace returns, someone usually cracks a joke to seal it. Humor works better than any law. Visitors from the surface are both fascination and risk. Some are journalists or students seeking stories. Others are volunteers delivering supplies. They are treated cautiously as both threat and hope. The residents watch how these outsiders move, whether they walk fast like tourists or careful like listeners. Trust comes only after shared work, helping to clean, carrying water, fixing a bike. Down here, Rob says, we do not trust words, we trust sweat. The outsiders who return more than once become family, given tunnel names that only the locals use. Travel within this underground world is an art. The tunnels twist and divide, their map known only by memory. Experienced wanderers can move from one end of the system to the other without surfacing, navigating by touch, by smell, by faint changes in echo. The deeper levels are more dangerous, flood-prone, airless, silent. Few go there willingly, but sometimes the need for quiet or space drives them further in. They mark paths with chalk, arrows, or strings tied to pipes, a labyrinth maintained by instinct. Those who travel far are respected like sailors who have survived rough seas. Communication spreads through rumor more than speech. When someone disappears or a new resident arrives, the news travels by whispers carried through shared fires and trading posts. Nate moved tunnels. Beverly's cat had kittens. Flood last night near Tropicana. The gossip serves a deeper function. It keeps the community synchronized, ensuring that no one becomes too lost. Even those who live alone in the far tunnels listen for these murmurs. Connection here is measured in echoes. Festivities, when they happen, are small but radiant. Birthdays are marked with candles melted together, forming uneven cakes of wax. Someone hums "Happy Birthday," off-key. The gifts are practical: dry socks, batteries, a lighter. But it is the ceremony that matters. The act of celebrating itself feels rebellious, proof that joy still exists. Sometimes when someone finds a bottle of wine in a dumpster, They call it communion, pouring tiny sips into paper cups for everyone to share. To staying dry, someone toasts and laughter fills the air again. There are unwritten rules everyone knows. Never sleep in a main drainage channel. Never burn plastic near sleeping quarters. Never walk in silence behind someone. Always warn before lighting a fire. These codes are recited to newcomers as if they were prayers. In their simplicity, they mirror ancient customs, tribal laws rewritten for concrete tribes. What began as survival has evolved into culture. You see art everywhere. Graffiti portraits, messages of hope, cartoon characters dancing on mold-stained walls. Some tunnels even host galleries. In one, called the Museum, the walls are covered with paintings made from charcoal, toothpaste, and crushed chalk. Figures of angels, desert landscapes, cities drawn from memory. We make art because it reminds us that we still have hands, the artist says, dipping a brush made from rat fur into a jar of blue ink. The colors are faint but stubborn, refusing to fade. Travel to the surface remains a rite of passage. Some go up weekly, others only when they must. The climb through maintenance shafts is narrow and slick. When they emerge blinking in sunlight, the heat feels violent. Above ground, their eyes water, their skin prickles. They describe the brightness as sound rather than sight, a roaring brightness that hurts. They hurry through their errands, collecting cans, checking donation points, visiting the recycling yard. Then, before the sun dips, they return, descending into the cool safety of their world. The light up there blinds you, Rob says, but down here you learn to see. In the quiet hours before sleep, when the tunnels hum with the slow breathing of hundreds of unseen people, you realize that community here is not a luxury but a strategy. It is how they stay sane, how they keep human. Every handshake, every shared cigarette, every story traded in the dark is a thread stitching one person's loneliness to another's. In that weaving, something sacred forms, a fabric stronger than fear. And when the last radio goes silent and the fires sink to embers, you can still hear it faintly, laughter echoing down a wet corridor, too far away to know who it belongs to, but enough to remind you that even underground, even forgotten, people are still capable of joy. Seasons above ground are marked by calendars, holidays, and air-conditioned transitions. Below, they are marked by the sound of water. You do not need a clock to know when the desert changes. The tunnels teach you. Summer hums with static heat. The concrete walls breathe out warmth stored from the day, turning the air heavy and close. Metal sweats, plastic softens. The smell of oil thickens until it coats your tongue. People sleep in thinner layers, keep buckets of cool water beside their beds, and use cardboard to fan the air. Rats slow down too, their bodies hiding in cooler cracks. The city above roars with tourists, but down here the noise becomes a distant tremor, like thunder remembered. Then one afternoon, when the air shifts and the wind tastes faintly of iron, everyone feels it at once. Somewhere in the mountains, clouds have burst. The first rain of the year is coming. Nobody sees it, but everybody knows. Voices echo down the tunnels, warnings shouted and repeated, rippling like seismic waves. Flood coming, flood coming. The ritual begins. Tarps are rolled, mattresses lifted, possessions tied high to pipes. People move fast but not panicked. They have done this many times. Every gesture has purpose. Candles are blown out, fires smothered, shoes tied. The tunnels fill with the rhythm of motion, the sound of life packing itself into minutes. Then comes the roar. It starts low, a tremble underfoot, then builds into a wall of sound, a monstrous rushing that swallows every other noise. You can feel it through your chest before you hear it. The air pressure changes. The tunnel breathes in. A surge of black water charges through, foaming with debris, spinning bottles, branches, trash bags, memory. The water moves fast, maybe 30 kilometers per hour, filling channels that were quiet seconds ago. It eats the light, turns every shadow into motion. Those who reach the higher levels watch from ledges, flashlights off, holding each other in silence. The roar lasts for minutes that feel like hours, then it passes. Afterward, the world smells of wet concrete and ozone. The air is cooler, cleaner, strange. The survivors descend slowly, barefoot, to feel the ground. What was once home is now a riverbed of silt and ruin. Blankets are gone, pictures washed away, the art smeared into grey streaks, but the living start again. They sweep water with pieces of cardboard, hang clothes on wires to dry, rebuild fires. Every flood resets us, Rob says softly, standing where his bed used to be. You mourn, then you mop. The simplicity of it cuts deep. Winter follows the floods, bringing cold that bites harder than hunger. The air turns sharp, breath visible in beams of flashlight. Fires burn longer, and every conversation drifts closer to the flames. People huddle together for warmth, pressing shoulders, sharing body heat. In these months, silence grows. Even laughter sounds slower, like it takes effort. Yet winter brings peace too. Fewer outsiders wander in, fewer floods threaten. The tunnels become still, contemplative. In the hush, you hear stories whispered like prayers, of old lives, lost houses, first loves, of the strange comfort found in constancy. Spring above means blooming flowers. Here it means scavenging. The floods leave behind gifts, dropped wallets, bicycles, scraps of furniture, the skeletons of things once owned by people who will never know they lost them. The mole people sift through it all, sorting salvage from waste. Every discovery, no matter how small, is greeted with a laugh or a sigh. The city rains blessings in its trash. Beverly says, holding up a watch that still ticks faintly. You just have to catch them. And then summer circles back again, heat settling into the tunnels like a permanent resident. Dust rises, air dries, and time repeats its slow-breathing cycle. People come and go, some climbing to the surface to try again, some new ones finding their way down. The community shifts shape but never disappears. Like tide pools, it empties and refills, fed by the overflow of a city that does not notice. You find Rob sitting beneath a grate, the faint grid of daylight painting his face in squares. Above, tourists walk to their cars, never guessing who sits beneath their feet. He lights a cigarette and exhales. I used to think we were buried, he says. Now I think we're planted. The sentence hangs in the air, half smoke, half truth. Later, as you prepare to leave, the tunnels seem quieter than before. The sounds that once felt threatening now feel familiar, the steady dripping, the soft scrape of footsteps, the whisper of wind through pipes. You pass the wall of names again, the memorial to those lost in floods. Candle wax gleams like amber under your light. Someone has written a new message beneath the names, still here, still breathing. You stop for a moment, realizing how rare that phrase is anywhere, above or below. When you finally emerge through a maintenance hatch, the brightness blinds you. The desert air hits warm and dry, the sound of traffic immediate and jarring. The casinos tower ahead, glittering like false constellations, but as you walk away, the echoes of the tunnels stay with you. The laughter, the murmured prayers, the drip of unseen water counting seconds. Beneath all this light, the dark world continues, unseen but enduring. And as night falls once more over Las Vegas, with its heat, its brilliance, its carefully engineered dreams, you think of those below, how they survive, how they build, how they wait for another dawn that never truly reaches them. And that is how they endured, not through strength alone, but through rhythm, care, and quiet genius like a candle going out.